Quentin Jerome Tarantino is one of the most influential film directors of all time. From his breakout hit Reservoir Dogs to movies like Pulp Fiction, the Kill Bill films, Django Unchained, and yes, my own personal favorite, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he is a cinematic force to be reckoned with. One of the things which makes him such an incredible director is his encyclopedic knowledge of films. He's watched thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them and has drawn his influences from cult movies, old movies, new movies, you name it. I mean, this man has seen it all and he's absorbed it all into his bloodstream. Welcome to the new series on this channel called Ancestors Unveiled, where I'll be taking you on a journey through the ancestry of somebody that I admire. In this case, we're going to be talking about the paternal and maternal ancestry of Quentin Tarantino. Now, why the maternal and paternal lines, might you ask? After all, these constitute a very small percentage of all the family branches of an individual. Well, to keep things simple, I've chosen one line from the father's side and one line from the mother's side, just to keep things easy. And the cool thing I like about patrilineal and matrilineal lines as well is, in theory, they're the two branches that you can test with specialty DNA tests. Those being, of course, Y-DNA, which traces the father's 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 line, and then mitochondrial DNA, which can trace the mother's 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 line. Now, according to Wikipedia, Quentin was born in 1963 in Knoxville, Tennessee, the only child of Connie McHugh and Tony Tarantino. Now, Tony, it seems, abandoned his family shortly after Quentin was born, and the two of them have no relationship with each other whatsoever. His mother filed for a divorce suit shortly after he was born, and out of respect for Quentin, we're not really going to be talking about Tony's acting career whatsoever, because that's what he ended up doing, is being an actor. Tony was born in 1940 in Queens, New York, as Raymond Anthony Tarantino. His parents were Elizabeth Salvaggio and Dominic James Tarantino. Not much is known about Dominic, but we can see that he was born in Long Island, New York, briefly worked for the Works Progress Administration, and was also employed as a building painter in the 1940s. He and Elizabeth later moved to California, where they divorced in 1970. Dominic died in 1981 at the age of 62. His parents, Jenny, aka Giovanna Fensore, and Anthony, aka Antonio Tarantino, were both immigrants from South Italy, from the town of Melfi, to be precise. Anthony worked as a barber, and from unindexed records on Family Search, I was able to locate his 1893 birth record, where he was born to Giuseppe Tarantino and Filomena Battista Fensore. I didn't get a chance to look into Filomena's branch, but given that she and Antonio's first wife, Jenny, shared a surname and a city of birth, there is a very good chance that they were probably cousins of one another. After Jenny died in 1934, Anthony remarried a woman named Catherine Iskro, who hailed from Sicily. The couple moved to Broome County, New York, and suffered a non-fatal but serious car accident in 1963, and Anthony died just 2 years later. He and Catherine are buried together at Whitney Point, New York. Now, as for Antonio's father, Giuseppe, he actually came to America as well and even shows up in the 1920 U.S. federal census under the name Joseph. However, when and where he died is still a mystery, as the name Joseph Tarantino is surprisingly common, and I'm sure that if somebody did a real deep dive through the unindexed records in Melfi, Italy, they might even be able to take this line back a bit further. You would probably need to read a little bit of Italian, but thankfully most of the birth and marriage records have indexes to the back of the books of records. You just really need to dig into them, and the handwriting is absolutely atrocious. Moving on to the maternal side of the family, we have Quentin's mother, Connie Sue McHugh, who was born in 1945 in Tennessee. Now, after divorcing Tony Tarantino, she remarried a man named Curtis Zastopil, who helped raise Quentin as a child. Connie has worked as a healthcare marketing executive, and interviews indicate that she worked up to a very high-ranking position within her field. While there are articles that imply that she may have had Cherokee ancestry, I wasn't able to find anything that actually verified this, and it wouldn't be super uncommon for somebody to exaggerate or make up stuff about having Native American ancestry, but this is still something that probably needs to be looked into a lot further. According to IMDb, Connie's parents were Edwin William McHugh and Betty June Woody, and it seems that Betty had quite the tumultuous love life. By 1949, she had already been twice divorced, from Edwin McHugh and then from a mysterious second man whose name I could not find. It's hard to pin down exactly who Connie's father Edwin was, but a census implies that he may have at some point gone to prison. Betty's third husband was Ellis Schaefer, whom she and Connie are living with in the 1950 census. In 1967, she married another man, John William Brittle, and in 1991 married her final spouse, Arcus Braden. For those who have been counting, that's 5 marriages in total. Moving up the matrilineal line, Betty came from a coal mining household in Tennessee. Her parents were John Asel Woody and Nancy Jane Smith, and I was very lucky to be able to obtain their marriage certificate from West Virginia's online archive. And this reveals yet another generation of the family, which, used in combination with Nancy's birth certificate, reveals her parents to have been named Robert Smith and Emmeline Burton. A 76-year-old Emmeline, in fact, gives the testimony on the delayed birth certificate, and from it, we learn that she was born in Campbell County, Tennessee. Even though Emmeline had a second husband, James Pierce, it appears that she went by her maiden surname for most of her life, as all of her records show her as Emmeline Burton. Her death certificate shows her parents to have been James and Edna Mae Burton. However, if we take a look at the censuses for Campbell County, Tennessee, there seems to be an Emmeline living with her mother, Edna J. Burton. I think this is probably the right person, since we do know that she came from Campbell County, Tennessee, and this is the only person who shows up in these records that seems like it could be her, plus the age matches up to everything that we know about Emmeline. Campbell and Anderson counties are right next to each other, and from the 1850 census, we see who appears to be Edna J. Burton once again, but living with her mother, Mariah, who was born in Virginia. And things get a little bit confusing here because if this is actually her, then it seems like the maternal surname was taken on a couple of generations in a row, which is not something that I'm used to seeing. Maybe somebody who has more insight into these old southern US records can tell me what is going on here. But it doesn't seem like a lot of people are taking on the father's last name, unless the father and the mother had the same surname, but there's very precious little that I could find about any of the male ancestors. Most of the censuses already have the women either divorced or widowed, and just them living with their children. So as we can see, not a lot of strong male figures, not just in Quentin Tarantino's life, but even in his ancestors' lives. Now, a number of public online trees seem to show this Tennessee branch of the family back even further, but none of them have actual sources attached to them, so we're not going to give them any credence or any airtime here, because we are based on facts and facts alone. So there you have it. We have traced Quentin Tarantino's matrilineal line back to at least his 4th great-grandmother, possibly even 5th, from Tennessee and Virginia in the United States. And then we've also traced his paternal Tarantino line back to his 3rd great-grandfather from Melfi, Italy. So I hope this has been really informative for you. If you like this episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've also left links down below to both my Instagram and my Twitter, so make sure to follow me on social media. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this new series, and I'll see you in the next one.